It's 5 o'clock in London, 1 p.m. in New York, 1 a.m. in Hong Kong, 4 a.m. in Sydney, 9 a.m. in San Francisco, and 10:30 at night in Mumbai. Greetings, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. My name is Patrick L. Young, the IPO-VID Livestream, Series 23, Episode number 4. Gosh, that's a lot of tricky math in a 6 times table. Episode number 136 of IPO-VID goes live, starts here. So, speaking about 136 episodes over the course of the last couple of years, it's worth thinking about looking to the future, ladies and gentlemen. We're barely T plus 6.5 million seconds away from US securities moving from T plus 172,800 seconds to T plus 86,400 seconds. Your Memorial Day weekend is going to end with US securities, along with Mexican and Canadian stocks, all settling T plus 1 day. That's going to be quite an epic occurrence altogether. I've been discussing it recently in the newsletter for the ACE vendor Vermiculus. The little worm is wriggling with gusto. You can catch their newsletter discussing all about the moving to T plus 1 experience at vermiculus.se on their website. Meanwhile, Exchange Invest produced a simple chart to show just why SIBO isn't a takeover target after CEO Tomczyk was pressed to deny M&A rumours once again. You can see it on screen right now, ladies and gentlemen. More importantly, it's free to Exchange Invest subscribers. And guess what? If you sign up right now for a free 30-day trial, we'll send you a free copy of the diagram as well. How's that for a little M&A cheat sheet so that you can look more intelligent around the water cooler in the business of bourses? Speaking of the business of bourses, well, the FIA had their 49th annual Boca Raton FIA Futures Industry Association conference just last week. It saw a lot of the leading C-suite thought. And by the way, after you've listened to this, I would suggest you go off and look at the New York Stock Exchange's podcast Inside the Ice House, where they've got the marvelous thoughts of Ken Griffin. Very, very interesting and stimulating podcast there. But of course, you only get the audio. You don't get the video as you do with IPO-VID. Amongst other people leading the C-suite thought at Boca Raton, aside from Ken Griffin, of course, was Adina Friedman, who noted very presciently money flows continue to be global, even if politics are becoming more local. At the same time, Jeff Sprecher outlined planning complexity. We're thinking, as Jeff said, a lot more about the long-term relations between regulators and countries in a way we hadn't had to do when we built those businesses. Our thoughts on that were all in Exchange Invest during the course of the last week. If you're not already getting ahead of what's happening in terms of thought in the bourse business, you need a subscription. Go to exchangeinvest.com. Only $379 a year. Cheap at half the price, cheap at a fraction of the price, and actually only a fraction of what you'd pay if you were to subscribe to the Financial News of London, for example. So very cheap, under $400, and we're offering you a free 30-day trial. Meanwhile, Deutsche Börse, they're building a dark pool. Very interesting move over a decade after DB1 pulled their dark pool cooperation with Liquidnet. Full disclosure, I was on the board of Liquidnet Europe at the time. Now both Deutsche Börse and Euronext are eager, in fact, to have their own block trading platform. What a marvelous and exciting world it is in the wonderful world of exchanges. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest today is a man who does not come from the world of exchanges, but nonetheless, he has been much more than an idle observer of matters in the future of finance. I'm delighted to welcome Gunnar Stefansson. Gunnar's topic today is Smileycoin, the happy face of crypto. Gunnar has a background in statistics in his day job. He's a professor at the University of Iceland. His research and applications attempt to merge blockchain and cryptocurrency with educational technology and clarity. Greetings, Gunnar. Welcome to IPO-VID. It's lovely to see you looking so well. Where in the world are you today?
Thanks for having me, Patrick. I'm in Iceland, and I've been here for a week or two. Before that, I had a month's stint of traveling, but back in Iceland, back home, before I leave again.
So where were you traveling recently? Do tell.
Colombia, actually. Colombia and the Galapagos Islands. So very, very nice trip, actually. And just fun. Nothing, no work, just fun.
That's absolutely marvelous. The Galapagos Islands, the origins of Darwinism. Lots of things you can think about there. You can read Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene and indeed the great works of the great man himself, Darwin. Well, that's fascinating. How did you find things when you were in Colombia?
Actually, I had great expectations for the Galapagos Islands, not so much for Colombia, and my experience was exactly the reverse. I was fascinated by Colombia, fascinated by the changes, fascinated by the landscape, nature, vegetation, absolutely everything, and the way they have addressed their history, earlier violence, recent violence, and how they've managed to, for example, take what you would normally call Medellin as what they call Medellin, completely change it from a city of drugs, violence, terrorism, cartels to a city of arts and street art, dancing, music, and so forth.
That's really fascinating. Yes, I was quite intrigued recently to read that Medellin has been rebranded, and nowadays it's branded as a retirement sort of housing area for older Americans, amongst other things, which seems like quite the most incredible turnaround. So presumably the Americans who probably did all the cocaine in their 30s are now in their 60s and beyond, and in the third age they're enjoying a much more restive retirement. Quite fascinating altogether.
It is fascinating, yes, quite fascinating.
It's an amazing turnaround, and shows just what you can manage to do with a country when you manage to get things together. We've actually got a weekend special this weekend in Exchange Invest, which is free to read, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. You can sign up for that newsletter at exchangeinvest.com. We're talking all about Haiti, and it's just absolutely amazing. What a desperate situation the Haitians have found themselves in, and how Haiti and the Dominican Republic have gone in completely opposite directions, and particularly in the last 30, 40 years. I mean, purchasing power parity GDP is now anywhere between 6 to 10 times what it was in between. Haiti and DR were mostly on a par just about 50 years ago. And now Dominican Republic, 6 to 8 to maybe 10 times GDP PPP compared to Haiti, which is going nowhere. Haiti's maximum, actually the largest size of the Haitian economy was in 1980. If you can imagine that, it's quite incredible to think of a country that wouldn't have grown during the course of, well, pretty much our entire working lifetimes, right? It's just amazing. It's terrible. So anyway, tell me, Gunnar, how did you come to be a professor at the University of Reykjavik?
So a very long time ago, sometime in the last century, I studied statistics, first mathematics, then statistics, ended up with a PhD from Ohio State University, and went to do research, went to the Marine Research Institute and worked there for 10, 15 years, ended up being in charge of the advice on the utilization of marine resources. And after I'd done that for 10, 15 years, I didn't really think I was learning much anymore. So I moved over to the University of Iceland and became a professor eventually. Very early on in my career there, I noticed that although most students were probably there to study, several were there mostly to copy each other's work. So I figured there was every reason to try to do something about it. And that's what led me to where I am now.
So that's very interesting. Now, that's a very deft syllogism, but where I am now. So explain to us, how did you make this kind of distributed quantum leap? Do explain.
So anyway, back in 1999, when I started at the university, you didn't see much in terms of educational technology. You had electronic exams, computer-aided testing, but not really methods intended for students to learn. So that's what we've been developing now, first me and then me and my colleagues at the University of Iceland, and a system whereby you and I could sit down in front of computers beside each other, for that matter. You could open up your phone, I could have a tablet, and we could request drills in mathematics or statistics or computer science or any topic that has been put into the system. And even if we worked on exactly the same drill sets, we wouldn't get the same sequence of drills.
Okay.
Making it much more difficult to cheat. I mean, I could ask you to do my homework for me, of course, but we wouldn't be able to copy each other's solutions. So that was step number one.
Right. Very interesting. So it's a sort of distributed ledger has already taken place, or at least distributed outcomes.
But then, back in about 2014, we had been investigating methods of trying to get people to work with us, come join us. And when I sent requests around the world, my responses were all from the developing world. They said they needed this, they wanted to work with us, they wanted to test this and use it with their students. The students couldn't afford books, they didn't have the capacity to grade student solutions and so forth. So we ended up going I ended up going to a conference in Barcelona. I sit beside this guy who's about to give a presentation. I give mine, he gives his, and we find that we're talking about the same things. He was working in Kenya at that time, and that's where this connection came up. So ever since, I've been hooked a little bit on Kenya and Kenyan slums in particular, slums and refugee camps. And then in 2014, we were wondering, can we do something other than just show people how their performance goes up, how their grade increases as they answer more questions correctly? Can we do something more? Can we put some reward system in there so people can buy the occasional banana or something or other? And the first thing at that time was, can we use Bitcoin? And we decided we couldn't really afford to buy Bitcoin. If we had, we'd be very rich today. So we generated our own cryptocurrency for exactly this purpose. And that completely changed everything. So now a student can work on their math drills. They can earn a couple of points. We usually call them points or tokens. And they can then use these points to buy stuff. And initially, our main reward was going to be buying a tablet. So what we do is we donate a few tablets to a library. Students come in, they borrow the tablet and solve these problems. They earn their points. And by the time they finished all of the secondary school mathematics to perfection, earned 1 million points, and they can buy the tablet.
Right.
This is where the blockchain comes in. You see, we can monitor that the tablet has actually been paid for, because on the back of every tablet, there is a QR code with an address in the Smileycoin token system. So it's an address for the Smileycoin blockchain. And if you pay 1 million smileys to this address, you own the tablet.
Wow.
So it serves as a receipt, it serves as a payment, proof of payment. And of course, we then ship more tablets to that library.
Fantastic.
Yes, and we can see, in other words, we can see in Iceland when a student buys a tablet in Kenya.
Wow. So then how does that work? In Iceland, you're essentially paying for and donating the tablets, and then so it's a way of incentivizing students through charity, but it gives them a step to manage to take their lives forward by owning their own tablet and therefore having their own machine. But in the meantime, they get all the benefits of it while they're paying for it, and they're not subject to swinging financial interest rates. They're actually incentivized to learn.
Correct. The next step then was somebody in the slums, a librarian in Kibera, asked whether we could do something else, whether we could help them with an issue that was quite acute at the time and still is. The students came to the library hungry. So, and we said, we're not in the business of writing blank checks, which nobody knows what is anymore. But if you can fold this into a Smileycoin economy, then we're more than happy to take a look at it. So out of this came the Smiley store. This particular librarian basically took a small table and put bananas and protein bars and sanitary pads for the girls and scratch cards for airtime or data bundles. Put them on the table, on the desk, and said, you can buy these things for Smileycoins. And this is where the blockchain really excels, because we assigned an address on the blockchain to the library. The students pay by putting money into that particular address. And the librarian gives them, the banana or the sanitary pad or whatever they purchase. And we see a record of the transaction all the way to Iceland. So we can then reimburse the librarian for the costs.
Right.
And it's very hard to see how you would do this in any other way.
Yes.
If you try to do this with receipts and invoices, that never works. You don't know the person on the other end.
And you're so open to fraud. I mean, the difficulty is once you go into paper or receipts, everybody spends hours, and you end up in this race. I noticed it was interesting recently, just as an aside to that. I mean, people like we were off to the inauguration of the Lord Mayor in the City of London. We went to the Lord Mayor's show, and one of the things they send you is, please, we love you taking pictures and going on social media, but don't take a photograph of your tags and post it before the event. Because people are instantly taking the tags. And actually, Formula One, amongst other sports franchises, have been banning people recently if they show their credential, because people are using those and then they're managing to take that and digitize it. So I agree with you. There's a huge arms race once you have anything that can possibly be printed, because the incentive to fraud is huge. But also it's incredible because you must build an amazing data network. You probably understand some of your students better in a way than their own parents do.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? We have, to date, we have something like 13, 14 million answers to the questions, the drills, and endless reams of transactions on the blockchain. And yeah, this is, being a professor at the university, half of my time was to be spent on research.
Right.
And my colleague today, my main colleague here in Iceland is Anna Helga. She wrote her PhD thesis on this topic, on the analysis of the data coming out of this. And interpreting how can we improve the system based on the responses that we see from the students. How can we, do the students learn more by online platform like this or from regular homework, so on. So it's an endless source of research and development, basically.
Well, I'm going to ask you about those results in just a moment, but actually I think we should jump into some of our wonderful audience, because we've had a few comments here. And first of all, I'd like to say hello to Ross Golding, and congratulations, Ross. I know your baby must be, 8 weeks old this week. I didn't learn that from the blockchain. That's one thing I can say. Greetings, Patrick Young, says Ross Golding. I think asset tokenization is the way forward, and soon in the next 3 to 5 years, everything will be on an exchange. As per Friday's discussion, yes, that was most interesting altogether. Thank you for organizing that, Ross, through blockchain ledger technology, obviously. And from the wonderful locales of Spain, we jump to your adopted home in many ways, the distributed home, so the Mwalimu Digital Virtual School. Hello, greetings, welcome to IPO-VID. It's lovely to have you on the show. Following keenly from Nairobi, Kenya. Gosh, that's really, really exciting, I have to say. And I will say this to Mwalimu Digital Virtual School. There's a danger that IPO-VID might be in Kenya next year, because I hear that the Association of Futures Markets are going to have the conference there. I think we should have a chat about that later, actually, Gunnar. There might be an opportunity for you and the marvelous Kristen to possibly be involved if we can manage to square something off. But hey, Mwalimu Digital Virtual School, greetings. It's lovely to see you. I hope you've managed to get all of your homework done in a perfectly reasonable and distributed fashion while you're enjoying this. Not sure if you're getting any Smiley credits for this, but I'll talk to Gunnar later and see what we can organize. How does that sound as a deal? It's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. So, I mean, very interesting. Here we are. We got engagement from Kenya. Tell us about, some degree of idea of what the results tell you about how this has worked for the children.
Yeah, so let me start with quantitative things. We know that students learn by using these systems. We know they learn more than from regular homework. But we also know that when given a choice, although they marginally prefer a system like this to regular homework, they actually vastly prefer a mix of the two. Right. So they occasionally want somebody to look at what they're doing and give them, real comments, the old way. So that's very fundamental. We also know that if you just tell people, go ahead and solve this and finish this up before you take the exam, those who do, they perform much, much better on the exams than the others who don't. And we can see development, for example. We can see improvement from one question to the next on average. And it's not just learning by rote, because although, of course, if you've seen the question before, you're more likely to know the answer. It's also your answers on similar questions improve. But the important stuff, the really intriguing stuff, which we got out last year, was that by practicing things like this, if you now stick in what we could call status exams at random into the overall drill sets, then you see an increase in performance in general mathematical questions, which have nothing to do with what you're actually studying.
Right.
So this is called transferable knowledge in pedagogy.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and it's really cool that we were actually able to demonstrate this. And it's to me, it's completely new.
It's fascinating because, in one way, you're contributing towards the old English public school narrative of creating the well-rounded individual, which was why they made them run around chasing pigs' bladders and grabbing them in fields during the winter and so on, and playing cricket in summer and all those things. But isn't it very interesting that, as you say, you have got that transferable knowledge that drives across? So people are learning across all possible ways. And also, clearly, they're honing their digital skills because you're making them use digital technology, which is a great thing, because those who emerge out of certain scholastic systems where they've barely used anything other than a chalkboard or pen and pencil can be singularly ill-equipped for the future.
Yes, and this is very important. The first place we went to, Takaviri Island, and the first time we went there in 2016, these students had never ever seen any sort of electronic tablet or computer or smartphone.
Wow.
They took to this, like one of our colleagues said, like fish to water. 20 minutes, they looked at this, and they'd been, solving math drills for 20 minutes, and somebody asked, are there really only math drills on this? And somebody else pointed out that they could actually access Khan Academy.
Right.
So somebody from Khan Academy, and 5 minutes later, they're sitting there balancing chemical equations.
Fantastic.
We didn't even know they could access them.
Right. But isn't that absolutely marvelous? I mean, it's fantastic. And in fact, we've got some extra comments coming in from oh my goodness. So we have got Ericsson Onyango following from Kakamega, Kenya. How are you, nice guys? We are nice guys. Well, we are delighted to see you. You're nice guys too, and it's a wonder to have you on the show. Isn't this a great thing about this digital information superhighway thing? I mean, some people think that it's just a way to get the same old stale news channels the world over, but we can talk to everybody everywhere in the world. And actually, I have a question about that I want to come back to in a minute. Now, our readers might join in as well. By the way, if you're watching at this point in time, whatever platform you're on, give us a little love, please, okay? Because it's not just that this is the ethos of Smileycoin, which is spreading the knowledge and spreading the love. It also helps the artificial intelligence bots understand how important this stuff is. And therefore, it means that we can manage to distribute more information about what's going on and hopefully grow the Smileycoin universe, which I think would be absolutely fabulous. And indeed, we have a follow-on from Mwalimu Digital Virtual School. Thanks. Welcome to Nairobi next year, 2025. As you've indicated, Karibu Kenya, Hakuna Matata. Even I can manage to say Hakuna Matata. That's about the only thing I can possibly do. I haven't tried any Duolingo courses yet on that, speaking of electronic learning devices, but I must think about it. Thank you very, very much, Ericsson Onyango, and thank you very much also the Mwalimu Digital Virtual School for joining us. So I've got a very, very simple and stupid question, which is, clearly when you're in downtown Nairobi, things are not too bad. You've got reasonable utilities, electricity, and so on. What do you find with Smileycoin? I mean, is there a problem with people simply not being able to access either electricity to charge their tablets and or the internet in order to be able to interact with what's going on and interact with the blockchain?
The reason we went to Takaviri Island originally was that we were told if this system could work in Takaviri Island, it could work anywhere in Kenya.
Right.
And at that time, the homes didn't have electricity. There was very few buildings anywhere had electricity, but one of the school buildings had unstable solar panels.
Mm-hmm.
The mobile phone network was sufficiently poor that we could never really obtain a stable internet connection, and we could still get this to work.
Wow.
But in that particular scenario, we had to install a small server, which ran off a battery, by the way. So when we lost electricity on the first evening, when the kids came back for an extra session, everything worked with no issues whatsoever. They just continued working using the tablets, which of course have a battery, and connected to the server, which had all our stuff preloaded. But today, Safaricom has pretty much connected all of Kenya to the mobile phone network, and they sell routers, or routers you would call them, which connect to the mobile phone network.
Brilliant.
So we're actually pretty well set now, and we give the sites a grant to purchase the first router if need be, but apart from that, we can get everyone pretty well connected. But of course, initially in Takaviri, without the connection, we couldn't use the Smileycoin.
Right.
So nowadays, people go into the store, they buy a Safaricom router and hook it up, and they're online, and that's all they need.
That's absolutely phenomenal. It's really incredible. And it is one of the joys of the modern economy, that particularly economies, I mean, continents like Africa, and particularly sub-Saharan Africa, managed to make this incredible leap forward, no longer having to put copper cable into the ground. They could build their data centers underneath big cell towers, and then from there they could distribute, it's so great to see that in action. And obviously then it's just a wonderful miracle that it makes it all the way back to you, right the way around the globe. And I'm just watching because we're getting lots of messages. The bandwidth's obviously very good tonight from Kenya. Jeremiah Otieno. More love from Jeremiah, all the way from Harvest School, Nairobi. Well, bless you, Jeremiah. It's lovely to hear from you. And meantime, we've got, the generic name of Mathematics Tutor. Hey, maybe we can just call you Maths and be altogether familiar, if that's okay, Mathematics Tutor. Watching from Bungoma, Kenya. So there you go. You've got such a great lineup of your fans, supporters, students who are coming to you from all around the world. That's particularly from the heartland of the Smileycoin initiative in Kenya. And hopefully I've got all of the messages there as I was going along. I think I might have missed actually a lovely heart from Zachariah Mbasu. Thank you very, very much, Zachariah. Really, really appreciate that. Do hit the like button if you can, ladies and gentlemen, because that really helps us in order to manage to make sure that everybody knows about this show and more people learn about Smileycoins. Now, we talked about fundamentally learning, but one of the things that really interests me that you talk about, I mean, obviously students can pay for their tablets, but as you say, they can also pay for foods, which is great because that in itself is another piece of educational benefit, because you're making sure that students eat healthily. I suspect, fortunately, Kenya hasn't so far managed to fall to the whims of the Western world, or particularly the United States of America, Great Britain, and parts of Europe, where all snacks for children seem to be innately unhealthy. So I suppose, but nonetheless, it's good that you can encourage that healthy eating. Eating, and tell us a bit about that. I mean, is it a conscious decision to try and encourage?
The conscious decision mostly is to try to give people some food. But by the time we tied this into the Smileycoin economy and let it loose, we leave it to whoever's in charge of a given location. We call them Smiley guides. They may be librarians, teachers, headmasters, and so forth. They set up a Smiley store. The students can come in and buy stuff. The sanitary pads for the girls are very important, because in some cases they can't make it to school. But the foodstuffs are also very important. And it turns out that the students often are not so interested in just buying a banana or getting a snack. They want to buy food for the home.
Wow.
And that's where you sort of stop and say, what's happening here? And we then get reports from the libraries, and now I'm into the qualitative results. We get comments from the libraries saying, for example, a girl came in today. She told us she's no longer asked to go downtown to clean houses, but she is asked to stay home and study because she occasionally brings home 2 pounds of flour.
Gosh.
Yes.
That's spectacular, actually. That really is an economic revelation in every possible way.
Yes.
That's incredible. And I think, sorry to just interrupt you, I didn't want to belittle it, but actually it's a point I want to bring out. This fascinating issue with sanitary protection for the helping young ladies, girls, students during the course of their monthly cycle. I mean, I think that is a fantastic concept, because it's not just about how much you can learn, it's about keeping people be able to go to education. And obviously, I mean, there's two dynamic points there. One, if this young lady is not having to clean houses downtown, she doesn't have to commute, she doesn't have to spend that time working, she can therefore study instead, and she can presumably get more sleep, which makes her a better student. And at the same time, presumably, she's able to make sure that she can deal with those things that she needs for sanitary protection and so on. And that keeps her at school rather than missing 2 or 3 days a month.
We have we're working with an orphanage in Western Kenya, in Oyugis, in Homa Bay County. They have this Icelandic guy who set up an orphanage, and one thing led to another. We heard about this and sent them some tablets. I figured this was completely impossible, but they called me up on Messenger, and I gave them a 15-minute introduction. The lady in charge of the site said they've never seen anything like this. Sleep is out for them. They're not going to bed tonight. And a couple of months later, several of them had purchased tablets. And today, a year and a half, 2 years maybe later, one is at university studying medicine, another one is at university studying nursing. One of them got into the secondary school they really wanted to, a vocational school. And these students had major problems, particularly with their mathematics. They were getting C minuses and Ds in mathematics and didn't really manage to pass the exams required to get into university. And they're all A's and A minuses and B pluses now.
That's phenomenal. And actually, we've got a lovely message here from Ibrahim Jatani. Undoubtedly, Smileycoins has put smiles on the faces of many needy students by putting tablets in their hands, thereby empowering them digitally and also instilling in them love of maths. A fabulous message. Thank you very much for that, Ibrahim. I mean, it's really, really heartwarming and inspiring to hear this great tale of human progress, which you've initiated and distributed out there to the world, Gunnar, but it's the students making it work for themselves, which is fantastic. True empowerment, which is incredible. And I'm going to interrupt you before we go back to the conversation there, because it's time to discuss a little tale of empowerment. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, we have a book of the week, which we look at regularly in this segment. It's also available free of charge in our weekend newsletter at exchangeinvest.com. Sign up for the weekend newsletter. It's totally free to be delivered to your home. Readings about macropolitics, macroeconomics, and all sorts of things around the world. So Niall Ferguson's The Ascent of Money. I've got an earlier edition here. I've actually had several copies of this book different times. I keep picking it up in paperback and reading it again. Really, really sensational. It's all about the history of money and how money came to be vitally important in society. And actually, as such, is at the epicenter of understanding the benefits of stores of value, such as what have later become the crypto coins, and particularly these very, very social investment oriented and beneficial to society initiatives such as Smileycoin. Niall Ferguson, I think, needs no introduction to many viewers. He's a very, very famous historian, TV series, and multiple award-winning books around the world. The Ascent of Money is an absolutely best-selling read. Really, really magnificent, lengthy paperback. Take it to the beach over the Easter holidays or wherever you might want to read it. And don't forget, as well as that, if you're looking for something to take you to the future of money and the future of finance, then think about one of my books, like Victory or Death, for example, the most recent in my canon of tomes, looking at the future of blockchain, cryptocurrency, exchanges, financial markets, et al. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I do believe we've got another comment. Oh, we've got several more comments have stacked up, which is absolutely fabulous. Let's go through those, Gunnar. Zach Mbasu, this is very powerful. Breaking down barriers to education, offering new learning methods, opening doors to a world of knowledge and opportunity for girls in rural areas. I think it's fantastic. It's for girls, it's for boys, it's for everybody who wants to learn. And that's just a fantastic empowerment tool that really delivers something incredible. Thank you very much, Zach, for your contribution. Now we've got a LinkedIn user. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what your name is because of the way the LinkedIn feed sometimes works. Oh, I do believe the LinkedIn user. How could I not possibly guess? It is my true love, a woman who's well known to you. Incidentally, if you want to check something out, Professor Gunnar did a fantastic PhD, Positivity Hacks Delivered, with the Woman on It channel just last year. Woman on It, the woman behind that is none other than my brilliant wife, Beata Young. And she's saying, hello, Professor Gunnar. Fascinating discussion. Thank you for your continuous help to underserved communities. Hear, hear. And Beata's followed up with a question. What are the advantages of using a cryptocurrency for charitable purposes compared to traditional methods?
Ooh, deep question. If you want to give something to somebody who has an address, in a cryptocurrency address, you just hit send in your wallet, basically, in your electronic wallet. If you're in the same country, have access to the same banks, then it's fairly easy to do it using conventional methods, if you like. If I want to send money from my regular bank in Iceland to somebody who lives in Kenya, that's actually rather involved. I need to set up an account with a remittance agency and transfer from my Visa card or my bank account to that remittance agency, and they then send it on to the M-Pesa account that the user in Kenya has. My bank account, my regular bank has no idea how to connect to M-Pesa in Africa. So what we've done is we've gone through the rigmarole of doing this, and we work with a really good bank called Wise, a really advanced fintech bank. So they do simple things like they make life simple by allowing me, for example, to upload a CSV file and send it to all the libraries all in one go with one push of a button. And if you want to do stuff like that, that's much more difficult in ordinary banks, but trivial using cryptocurrencies. So if you want to do fintech, it's much easier. But if you just want to give to somebody who lives in the same town, then it's not so much difference. Unless, of course, you want to remain completely anonymous, which would be difficult with Bitcoin anyway. Then you get slightly more anonymity using cryptocurrency than with a regular bank transfer.
But I think, obviously distribution, cost and speed are fantastic. And particularly so, you mentioned M-Pesa, who are a fantastic business across many parts of Africa, and also Wise, who've got a huge footprint around the world. We use them ourselves for distributing. They're absolutely magnificent for a lot of their payment services. But it is clearly difficult when you're dealing with particularly restricted currencies, that it can be very difficult to move the money in and out of, which are still prevalent, unfortunately, through much of Africa. And even, let's face it, it's quite difficult to get your money moved around in South African rand, let alone in the currencies of Rwanda or wherever. So, I agree with you. That's a key thing. We have a question from Woman on It coming tomorrow. Woman on It will have their show at, I do believe, the same time same time tomorrow on their channel, the Woman on It channel. Congratulations, Professor Gunnar. On behalf of our communities, we send you words of gratitude. What are the biggest challenges Smileycoin faces in terms of adoption and integration into educational institutions?
Okay, so we are able to quite easily integrate into various informal institutions, such as libraries, reading clubs, entities called School of Hope, run by Challenge 8, another charity, orphanages, and so forth. We can integrate with these quite easily because they're informal. One of the schools, and in fact we have representatives of them here on this list from Harvard. Some of the schools have taken the content we have and integrated them with their traditional curriculum or with the way they teach. And so that then stops being a challenge really in institutions where we have forward-thinking people who want to adopt new technologies. But with the general educational institutions, you take my own country, take Iceland, people tend to be quite fixed on the way they have done things and want to continue in the same way. It's difficult to get them to adopt new technologies, and people usually see it as a burden rather than a way to ease their work in the longer term. Smileycoin itself, wherever we go with the Smiley charity, the Smileycoin tends to follow. People happily adopt this. They're very, very enthusiastic about it. We will probably get to talk a little bit more about Smileycoin near the end. What we're using it for right now is sort of short economic threads. The students earn Smileycoins. They go to the Smiley store, they buy something which we then reimburse for. And this is not, a detailed economy. And that is a problem in terms of trying to expand its use and trying to make it more worthwhile for the students to use it. We would also like to be able to hire people, for example, generating content. I think we know how to do this, but it is a challenge, and it's something we will need to address in the future. Now, of course, there are banks. I know several banks, including my own bank, that do not want to touch anything crypto related with a 10-foot pole, and it's an official policy of the entire establishment. And as long as that remains the attitude, we will have a continuing problem with adoption. But of course, that just means that people go out and do their own thing, and it's not all good either.
It's a very interesting issue because, presumably the scope for expansion for Smileycoin is quite vast. It's got to be into tens, if not hundreds of millions of children and students around the world.
Yes, we celebrated our 4,000th student in January, and we basically are standing on the brakes right now. And some of the participants in your thread, they already know that we are, we're trying not to allow students too quickly into the program because we need to have the money to pay, to give them tablets if they succeed at what they're trying to do. So we need to do this slowly and in an orderly manner, if you like. But yes, there's no real limit here. If you just take the refugee camps, there are of the order of probably close to 1 million people living in refugee camps in Kenya alone. And we think of these refugee camps in Europe. Usually, those are the news we see. They're nothing compared to what the countries of Africa have.
Well, it's incredible, actually, when you think about refugee camps in somewhere like Kenya, because we don't think of Kenya as having been particularly in the firing line of major issues. But obviously in many ways, their difficulty is the dispersal of people from other violent events that have taken place in uprisings around the region. And it's mind-boggling to think that there's essentially, therefore, twice the population of Iceland are sitting just in refugee camps in Kenya alone, and tens of millions of people who are sitting in refugee camps across sub-Saharan Africa, let alone elsewhere.
Yes. We started off by looking at slums, and then we decided to do some experiments in refugee camps, see if it could work there also. When we start out, we don't really know if it's going to work, right? The fact that it works in a classroom in Iceland doesn't mean it's going to work in a slum or low-income area in Kenya. Having done that, we moved over to refugee camps in Kakuma, in northwestern Kenya, which that refugee camp alone has over 300,000 people, or give or take. And it was a tremendous success. The students were more enthusiastic than we had ever seen before, and that's saying something. They bought up the 5 tablets in the first couple of weeks, and we needed to do more, and then more, and then more again. And this just keeps on going. Now, obviously, in a refugee camp, the things are different from the way they are in slums.
Right.
It's a different clientele, they have a different background, they have different issues. And that's what makes Kenya so interesting, because all the regions are different. I mean, there's a rural area, there's a slum, there's an island with no electricity and so forth. So the variety is enormous, and we learn something new every day, basically, in working with this, with all these people. But in Kakuma, in the refugee camp, the people want to use the Smileycoin for more.
Right.
Plus to the slums, but even more so in the camps. So, what do you do if you don't really have anything? You lost your passport. You may have a little bit of money left over, but probably not. You fled a war in South Sudan or somewhere or other, and got into a refugee camp with hundreds of thousands of other people. What are you going to do? And the answer in many cases is, let's get an education and try to do something. Let's try to figure out how to work using the internet. So these sorts of opportunities, and I think in an area like this, the role of Smileycoin or cryptocurrency in general could be much greater than it is today.
That's a fascinating thought.
Yeah. So to begin with, people might not have tablets or any device to store the wallets on, but that's something they get out of our program, and then they're ready to address other things. And you see people who are taking courses in India on something or other. They do the most amazing things. Adult classes for women. You've got 30 women in a room. They've got their children with them. They're breastfeeding during the classes. It's a totally amazing thing to see in these camps.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, the way that, for example, Muhammad Yunus advanced microbanking, and he wrote that great book, Banker to the Poor, where he brought women together and essentially collectivized the lending process. So he made all the women equally and severally responsible for all of the loans that were made, which was an act of genius, because all the women then helped each other. And even if there was a problem with one woman paying her loan back because of illness or whatever, they tried and endeavored to make up the whole issue. And it brought the community together better and added economic growth and educated the women. And it strikes me that Smileycoin is the beginning of the same revolution through education, let alone through money, because you're de facto, while adding to their math, you're adding to their financial education by showing them the power of what's a cryptocurrency that has a use case can do, as opposed to merely empty pixels and a lot of hype, as we often see in the West.
Yes. I mean, you're making my case.
I think we're in heated agreement, Gunnar. We're in absolutely heated agreement. It's so fascinating altogether. So tell me, I mean, Gunnar, as you look at things today from Reykjavik, from Iceland, how do you feel? What do you think are the 2 or 3 biggest challenges for you now with Smileycoin, and how are you looking to move forward with those?
So, can I put this in the context of your favorite question?
Please, you can go right ahead. Where, Gunnar, does the capital market revolution go next? And carry on talking.
So I think the next step in the capital market revolution is mangoes. So I figured I'd stim you with this one. So our biggest problem today in our market, which is the Smileycoin market, is that the threads in the economy are too short. Students who earn Smileycoin go to the store, buy stuff, and the store can't get rid of them, so we need to buy them back, basically. We need to do something to generate a larger use case, wider use case for Smileycoin. So what we've done now is we've written into our next project proposal to see if we can do something simple like grow trees in the schoolyards.
Okay.
We contacted a few of them, and they said, yeah, good idea, let's do this. And all sorts of different reasons for it. The kids are hungry, we need to find more uses for Smileycoin, so let's grow some trees, something that's useful, mango trees, avocados, whatever will grow in a given place. And then if we think about ownership, somebody needs to own them, probably a school. So students get some Smileycoins for planting, writing reports on how the plants are developing. So a given schoolyard might start with 10 trees, some die, some get, some need to be replaced. But in 5 or 6 years, you'll start seeing some fruits.
Right.
Suppose you then sell the school sells those fruits to the store or to the students for Smileycoins.
Right.
Now you have a circular market for the Smileys. Mm-hmm. Students buy stuff in the store for Smileys. The Smiley buys mangoes and can sell the mangoes again for either Smileys or Kenyan shillings.
Mm-hmm.
The school gets Smileys for selling mangoes, and the school can now buy other stuff, stationeries, whatever they like, for the Smileys. And now suddenly the Smiley isn't just a one-way street from the Smiley tutor back to Smiley charity. It becomes a circular economy. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work just with mangoes, but I'm saying this is one of the steps we need to take to make it more useful.
That's fascinating. So creating an entire economic ecosystem that feeds with the Smileycoin at the center, which is both the incentive and at the same time can be something that offers a store of value and a transactional implement that therefore keeps rotating rather than having to worry about a sort of this mysterious central bank treasury in Iceland, which manages to be the provider of all the tablets and all of the other informations. Quite fascinating altogether. A really, really intriguing discussion altogether, Gunnar. It's been a joy. Thank you, says Woman on It, summarizing beautifully, for this discussion, letting all gain deeper understanding of the founder's vision for Smileycoin and its potential impact on the education and charity sectors. Hack the future, Professor Gunnar, says Bat Young, who's a Woman on It. You were on her PhD. Actually, you've been on twice, haven't you? But you were on specifically talking about Smileycoin, I remember, and how that helps particularly female students as well as the male. About a year or so ago. Look, this has been the most incredible, inspiring discussion, and I think it inspires a lot of us who've had major league issues in relation to a lot of the factors around what has become a very short-term, greed-driven, and one has to be said, somewhat criminal enterprise around certain aspects of cryptocurrency. It's really interesting. Keeping fingers crossed for your plans, Gunnar, comes the message from LinkedIn, and I think we all echo that entirely. Let me just say, Gunnar Stefansson, professor at the University of Iceland, it has been marvelous. And if nothing else, the one great thing is you ended up with, I imagine, more statistics than you could ever possibly have imagined you were ever looking for at that point in time. Let me just add that keeping fingers crossed for your plans, Gunnar, is from our dear friend Jonathan Cowan. Great to see you, Jonathan. Thank you very, very much for joining the show today. So you have an incredible, I think, data lake of your own in the center of Reykjavik. In fact, it must be boiling over. It must be close to being a data volcano if we're not careful. Wonderful altogether. Thank you very much for all of your comments. Jonathan Cowan, Ross Golding, Mwalimu Digital Virtual School, no less than 2 comments. Erickson Onyango, Zachariah Mbasu, Jeremiah Otieno, mathematics tutor in Kenya as well. Ibrahim Jatani, Batty Young, and Women on It. We really, really appreciate all your comments. That's been this week's incredible show. Utterly, completely a delight to see you. And at the last moment, we have a great comment from our commodities doyen, Anne Berg. Anne Berg is saying, thanks for such an inspiring idea. Grounds up creation of the microeconomy. Coming there from the UNFAO's former commodities advisor. That's strong praise indeed. Absolutely marvelous. And in fact, we're getting a rush. Mwalimu Digital Virtual School, a tablet in the hands of a young Kenyan, serves a preparation for embryonic and rapidly evolving AGI, artificial general intelligence. You keep working on all of those aspects of the general intelligence. There's students and schools in Kenya. This has been a marvelous show. I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's participated. Massive thanks to our production gallery today. Thank you, Herminia, Jamil, and Marianne. Super show from start to finish. hopefully we'll get a chance to get you back at some stage and talk a bit more about Smileycoins and generally cryptocurrency for good, because I think that's something that hasn't been on the right side of the distributed ledger for a while. All the very, very best to you in Iceland. All the very best to your wonderful wife, Kristen. I hope she's enjoying her retirement after a long and great career with the stock exchange in Reykjavik. Gunnar Stefansson, this has been a magnificent show. I'm Patrick Young, and next week we'll be joined for IPO-VID 137. We'll be looking at modernizing markets. We are staying in the chilly north. We're going to be heading over to somewhere in Scandinavia, I would guess, with Magnus Haglund. He is the boss of Nasdaq's Marketplace Technology Division. We're really looking forward to that show. Magnus is always a sparkling individual. But for today, from the wonderment of Iceland and Professor Gunnar Stefansson's incredible Smileycoin, we're wishing you a fabulous week in life and markets. And students, keep studying.
Thank you.